they poked the lion. That's what happened. Not metaphorically, not kind of, not in some vague spiritual sense. They literally looked at you, sized you up, decided you were safe to mess with, and they poked you. And here's the thing about lions. The real reason people don't poke them isn't because they look scary. It's because a lion at rest looks almost peaceful, calm, unbothered. And that calmness gets misread as weakness. They saw your stillness and thought it was submission. They saw your patience and thought it was fear. They saw you holding back and decided you had something, actually nothing, to unleash. So they poked. And now they are in the middle of the most uncomfortable education of their entire life. Because what they just discovered, what they couldn't have possibly prepared for, is that you are a black swan. And black swans don't just fight back. Black swans change everything. They rewrite the whole game. And nobody saw you coming. You need to understand what a black swan actually is, because this is important. A black swan is an event so rare, so outside of every calculation and prediction that when it happens, it doesn't just surprise people. It shatters their entire model of how they thought the world worked. And the wild part, after it happens, everyone looks back and goes, "Oh my God, of course, the signs were all there." But they missed it. They couldn't see it coming because they were so too busy assuming the pattern would hold. They assumed you'd keep being what you'd always been to them, manageable, predictable, containable. And that assumption, that's exactly what destroyed them. To them, you were a predictable pattern. Now you are an anomaly that breaks their entire reality. In behavioral psychology, this is what happens when someone builds a mental model of you designed to control or exploit. They categorized you as safe, soft, or passive. By poking the line, they expected a standard reaction. Maybe tears, maybe retreat, maybe submission. Instead, you emerged as something their framework cannot process. A black swan, is a psychological outlier. It's an event that is impossible to predict, carries massive impact, and only gets explained away after the fact. You have become a cognitive dissonance that cannot resolve. Their brain literally cannot process the version of you that stands in power because it contradicts everything they told themselves to feel superior. And you are no longer a person they can deal with. You are a psychological shift they have to survive. Because here is what they never stopped to ask themselves. What happens when the person you've been underestimating this whole time, finally stops holding back? That is a question. Let me paint you a picture because I want you to feel this, not just understand it. Think about someone who's been in a room maybe it's work, maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's a whole social circle. And this person has been the one who keeps things smooth. They show up, they do more than their share, they stay quiet when they probably shouldn't have, and they give people the benefit of the doubt over and over again. Not because they are a pushover, because they are choosing peace, because they have got enough self-awareness to know that not every battle is worth their energy. And people around them watch that happen, and they make a calculation, a wrong one. They go, okay, I know where the line is with this person. I know how far I can push. And then slowly they start pushing past it, a little at a time, testing, probing, getting comfortable with how much they can take before there is a reaction. And the reaction never comes. So they push harder. They build a cage for a bird, never realizing they were dealing with a black swan that was meant to fly above their radar. They thought they had you contained. They never considered you were built for altitudes that they can't even breathe at. What they don't realize, what the genuine cannot see, is that this person has been watching everything, cataloging everything, every slight, every betrayal, every moment where someone looked them dead in the eye and chose selfishness anyway. Every time someone smiled at their face and went behind their back, every "I got you" that turned into nothing, every conversation that got twisted, every effort that got taken for granted. Every time the room shifted and they were the one who got left holding the consequences of everybody else's choice. They have been watching, and they have been patient, not passive, patient. There is a massive difference. To them, you were an underdog. To the universe, you were a masterclass in waiting. Every moment of silence wasn't weakness. It was accumulation. You were gathering data while they were busy getting comfortable. And then something shifts. Maybe it was one specific thing, one moment that crossed a line so clearly, so desperately, so personally targeted that it couldn't be ignored anymore. Or maybe it wasn't one thing. Maybe it was the accumulation, the weight of it all finally becomes more than even the most patient person can hold. But whatever it was, something in them clicked, like a gear finally catching. And quietly, without announcement, without a warning speech, of course, without a dramatic moment, they stopped. They stopped making it easy. They stopped smoothing things over. They stopped absorbing the damage so other people didn't have to feel it. And that's when the people who poked the lion realized they had no idea who they were actually dealing with. They keep trying to use their old user manual to handle you, but you have rewritten your entire internal code. every tactic, every button they installed, every lever they used to pull, none of it works anymore. They are pressing buttons connected to nothing, pulling levels that snap off in their hands. The operating system they knew is gone. You upgrade it, and they don't have the password. Here is what makes this situation so specific, so particular to you. What happened to you wasn't some misunderstanding. It wasn't a miscalculation where two people accidentally hurt each other. No, no, no. What you are dealing with is someone who made a deliberate choice. They sat with it, they planned it, they looked at you specifically with full awareness of what they were doing, and they decided to go after you, like pointing a finger right at you in a crowd and saying, "That one. Go get that one." That intentionality changes everything, because it means what's coming back isn't random. It's specific. It's precise. What you send out deliberately comes back to find you the same way. You are the black swan event of their life. The one thing they never calculated, and the one thing they cannot recover from. They ran the numbers, they assessed the risk, and they still missed the one variable that changes the entire equation: you. And here's the thing about people who operate like that. People who make calculated moves against someone they believe cannot or will not fight back. They are always operating blind in one crucial area. They know what they are doing. They don't know who they are doing it to. They think they do. They have created a version of you in their head that fits what they need you to be. Small enough to target, predictable enough to control, disconnected enough from your own power that you will not be able to mobilize it effectively. That version of you is a fiction. It's a story they told themselves so they could feel comfortable making a move they never should have made. In their mind, you were a constant. Yeah. Now you have become the variable that bankrupts their ego. Their entire sense of control was an investment in a version of you that doesn't exist. And now that investment is worth nothing. Their confidence is in a free fall. Because the real you is someone who has been quietly and without anyone fully tracking it, building something, not loudly, not in a way what broadcasts itself and invites sabotage, but building, learning, getting clarity, getting sharper, getting more rooted in who you actually are and what you actually carry. Every hard thing you've been through hasn't broken you down. It's been adding something. Every time you got knocked sideways and found your footing again, that recovery was not just survival, it was data. It was you learning something about your own architecture that you couldn't have learned any other way. You are not the same person you were the last time someone tried to come for you. and they have absolutely no idea. They are looking for the old you, like a ghost in the room. But that person left the building a long time ago. They keep trying to summon someone who no longer exists. And they are starting to realize with dawning honor that they are standing in an empty house talking to themselves. That's the black swan energy. That's exactly it. They ran their calculations based on all data. They looked at your history, your patterns, your previous responses, and they built a prediction, a confident one. And every prediction they made is about to be wrong. Not because you are going to be or to do something dramatic or explosive, but because you have quietly become something their model cannot account for. The variables changed. You changed. And now the equation they were so sure about doesn't produce the result they were counting on. You're not just breaking their rules. You are operating in a dimension they don't even have the coordinates for. They cannot even find you on their map anymore. Every move they make is based on a location you no longer occupy. And I want to slow down here for a second, because there is something that almost never gets talked about. The specific loneliness of being someone who chose restraint over and over again, not because you had to do, but because you believed it was the right thing to do. You had options. You always had options. There were moments where you could have torched it all, could have said the thing that everyone in the room was already thinking, could have let people see exactly what you'd see. And you didn't, not because you were weak, because you were actually trying. You were extending grace that, looking back, was never going to let the way you hoped. And there is a particular kind of grief in that, realizing that your goodwill got misread as weakness, that your patience got mistaken for permission, that the very qualities that make you someone worth being around are the same ones that made them think they could get away with it. Grief. They thought you were an easy yes, but your no has become an immovable mountain. Every time you finally drew a line, they acted shocked, not because the line was unreasonable, but because they never believed you would draw one at all. And now that mountain is standing right there, where their access to you used to be. But here's what that grief taught you. It taught you discernment, not cynicism, discernment. There is a massive difference. One closes you off to everything, but discernment just makes you much harder to fool twice. You know now, in your body, in a way that doesn't require analysis or convincing. You know what real feels like versus what strategic feels like. You know the difference between someone who's in your corner and someone who is standing next to you waiting for an opportunity. You can feel it before you can explain it. And that's not paranoia. That's earned wisdom. That's what happens when you actually pay attention to what life keeps showing you until the lesson finally sticks. You have become a mirror. Every time they try to attack you, they are forced to see their ugliness they try to project onto you. What they threw at you bounces back. Not because you are throwing it, no, because mirrors don't throw. Mirrors just show. And what they are seeing now is a reflection they cannot look away. There is something almost poetic about the specific way this unfolds too. Because think about how they did it. Just think about it. They thought they were being slick. They thought they'd covered their tracks, worked the angles, set things up so that when the damage landed, you wouldn't even be able to point back at them. Like a play that's been drawn up too carefully, too cleverly, with too much confidence in every piece staying exactly where they put it. But here is what happens when you make a move against a black swan. The whole board reconfigures. The pieces don't stay where you put them. You aimed at where you thought you'd be. They are not there anymore. And now you are standing in the middle of a game that's playing by rules you don't recognize. And the person you thought you had figured out is looking at you from a position you never anticipated. They poked the line, expecting a roar, but your cold, calculated silence is what's actually terrifying them. A roar would give them something to react to, something to justify their next move. But silence gives them nothing, no handle, no opening, just the quiet sound of their own heartbeat racing while they wait for a response that never comes. That's what's happening right now. That's what they are waking up to. And let me tell you about the psychological weight of that realization, because this part is important. There is a particular kind of mental pressure that comes from knowing you made a move, a deliberate, premeditated move, and watching it now just fail, but watching it not just fail, but reverse. Because when you attack someone you thought was beneath you, or behind you, or too distracted to see it coming, and they not only see it, but they respond from a position of calm, grounded power. Something breaks inside you, not physically, psychologically. The guilt starts, the second guessing, what did I actually start here? And the nights where you're running through this sequence of events, trying to find the moment where you still had control and realizing you cannot get it back to it. The way every small thing that goes wrong starts to feel connected, starts to feel like consequence. That's not a coincidence. That's what it looks like when reality starts settling the tab. You're healing was the one outcome they didn't prepare for. They needed you broken to feel whole. Your suffering was a pillar holding up their self-esteem. And when you took that pillar away by healing, by rising, by becoming unreachable, their entire structure started cracking. They are currently in the denial phase of realizing they lost you. Do not stick around for the anger phase. That's not your show to watch. You have already left the threader. Yeah. And here the part nobody tells you about being the one who got targeted. You get to step back and watch that happen from the outside, because you already did the hard work. You've already processed the betrayal, already felt the weight of it, already sat in the uncomfortable truth of who these people showed you they are. You have grieved what you needed to grieve. You have gotten clear, and now you are not in the explosion. You've already been moved. It's like you got escorted out of the blast zone before the detonation. Not because you ran, but because something in you knew it was time to stop being in range of people who mean you harm. You found yourself in a different position, a different energy, a different lane. And whatever was aimed at you hits empty air. This is the piece that's hardest to describe, but maybe the most real. Your elevation, your shift, your evolution. It happened not despite the attacks, but in response to them. Every time someone tried to keep you small, something in you got clearer about how big you actually are. Every time someone tried to define you by your limitations, you got more acquainted with your actual capacity. Every door that closed in a way that felt like punishment turned out to be rerouting you towards something better, something more aligned, something that couldn't have been reached from where you were standing before. You could not see it in the moment. You might not have believed in it if someone told you. But here you are, on the other side of what they tried to do to you. And the ground under your feet is solid in a way it's never been. They tried to dim your light, to save their own eyes. But now you are burning with the intensity of a 1,000 suns. And the thing about that kind of light, it doesn't just illuminate you. It exposes everything they tried to hide in the dark. And there are people who recognize that about you. People who can see what you bring, what you carry, what you are capable of building when you are not spending half your energy managing someone else's chaos. Those people are around you now, or they are coming. Yeah. The energy you've been quietly generating, the focus, the clarity, the quiet authority of someone who knows exactly who they are after being tested, that's magnetic. Yeah, that's really magnetic. Not in a loud, look at me way. In a deep, this person has something real way. And the connections that are forming or strengthening around that truth are built on something solid, something that can actually hold weight, something that's going to last in a way that the fake ones never could have. Meanwhile, the people who poked the lion, they are dealing with the full weight of the consequences they didn't think through. Because they made a deal they didn't understand the terms of. They chased a win that costs more than anything they gained. And the real gut punch, they cannot undo it. They cannot uncross the line. They cannot go back to the moment before they decided to come for you and choose differently. They have to live inside that, what they chose. And the architecture of that choice is built from their own decisions, which means the walls don't move just because they are uncomfortable now. They are waiting for the dust to settle so they can go back to normal. They do not realize you are the storm that changed the normal forever. Normal was a house they built on sand. You are the tide that came in and didn't go back out. And now they are standing in the wreckage trying to find the blueprint. And you do not have to do anything. That's the thing about being a black swan. You didn't have to orchestrate the consequence. You didn't have to scheme or plot or spend your energy on revenge. The consequence is inherent in the attack. Yeah. When you go after the wrong person, the damage doesn't just land on them. It reverberates back every time. And the more deliberate the attack, the more specifically and personally it circles back. They pointed at you precisely. And that precision, it's a boomerang. You've transitioned from being their target to being their lesson. And trust me, it's a lesson they will never forget. Not because you taught it with anger or vengeance, because you taught it by simply becoming who you were always meant to be. And that version of you doesn't even have room for them in the frame. Here is what I want you to really sit with, though, because this is the thing that matters most. The reason they didn't see you coming isn't because you were hiding. It's because they were not looking. They were too busy operating out of their own agenda, their own calculations, their own small version of what the game is and who the players are. And that kind of blindness, the blindness that comes from ego, from entitlement, from thinking you got someone figured out, that's always the setup for a black swan event. You don't get blindsided by the thing you were watching for. You get blindsided by the thing you dismissed. They dismissed you. That's the whole story. And now that story has a next chapter they didn't write and cannot control. You've become something different, not louder, not harder, not angrier. Different in a way that's more fundamental than any of those things. You have become someone who knows the difference between being chosen and being used. Someone who can feel the weight of a real connection versus a strategic one. Someone who doesn't need the room to see them to know their own worth, because that worth got tested in private, quietly, in the moments no one was watching, and it held every single time. And there is a kind of confidence that comes from that, a quite unshakable kind that no attack can manufacture and no betrayal can take. They tried to take something from you. What they actually did is show you exactly what you have and exactly what you don't need anymore. The line is awake now. And everyone is finding out exactly what that means. And I will leave you with this, because I think it's the truest thing I can say. The version of you that comes out on the other side of this, more focused, more clear, more anchored in your own truth than you have ever been, that version is not a consolation prize for what you went through. That version is the whole point. You didn't just survive someone trying to come for you. You used it unconsciously, maybe, without a plan or a strategy, but your system, your soul, whatever you want to call it, took the pressure they put on you and turned it into fuel, into clarity, into a version of yourself that is genuinely harder to knock down, harder to manipulate, harder to underestimate. Not because you built walls, because you finally stopped doubting yourself, doubting what's inside them. And that's something they can never take back, no matter what they do next. They handed you something they will never get back themselves. You became a black swan, and black swans don't go back to being invisible, not ever.